welcome to another riveting episode of Digital Transformation today with SaaSy. I'm Andrea. I run a company called SaaSy Software, and that's enough about me, much to Zreen's horror. Digital transformation for SaaSy means that a business is using digital tools and technologies to streamline and improve its operations, create new products and services, or better meet the needs of its customers. And that, in simple terms, means putting in and using the right software. And Zreen and I are so organised today that she thought she was interviewing me for her podcast, and I was convinced I was interviewing her for this. Here we are. We're just going to wing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Zreen. I am the CEO founder of Biz Women, an organisation, a community network for women in business. And absolutely, I thought we were interviewing you for Biz Women. That is exactly what I thought I was doing today. She was like, have you seen the notes? I was like, no, we're a podcast and normally really casual. And then I'm seeing all these notes. I'm like, hold on, where are you in this? And she was like,
I'm interviewing you. I don't want to talk.
She's like, I'm asking the questions.
It's gone really well. That was 5 minutes ago. The thing that, what did I mean to say there? What else do you do other than Biz Women?
So I also run, I'm glad you asked actually, Biz Women is a passion project that got out of hand, basically, as sometimes it does. But actually my background is in web solutions, so I and tech, so I run a travel tech business called Travel Scotland, travelscotland.com, which is an online booking platform. From inspiration to research to, you can leave reviews and obviously book things like canyon tours in Scotland. So yeah, go and check it out. And also in the background I also run an organisation for web solutions called Cloud Web Designer. So I keep myself busy, but yes, I think
sound like you do a lot at all.
Biz Women is where my passion is, though. This is where I'm hooked at.
Partying tonight,
and we are going partying
which is
tonight.
Why we're face to face. Finally today.
We've got Biz Women Summer Fiesta happening tonight because it had to be done.
Yeah.
And so we are going to Fiesta tonight. That's what's happening.
I have 3 different outfits in my bag. I'm not that girly. I just panic, and I can't not have a meltdown when I'm getting dressed. And if I haven't got the wardrobe at home to get a meltdown and just go, I want to go in a t-shirt.
It's all good.
It's
part of getting ready,
especially for women. Yeah. I am just chuffed that we finally got one face to face. There's normally all the interviews are virtual, which is great. Zoom's wonderful and all that sort of stuff, but I never actually sit in a room doing this, however much I try and heckle people into meeting me face to face, so I'm glad it worked out.
It's tough though, right? Because everybody's everywhere, right? And so, you're in London, I'm here in the Northwest and occasionally Scotland, and so, the chances is that it had to be a fiesta to bring us both together.
I'm okay with that, any excuse. What's one thing everyone should know about you but probably doesn't? This is my favourite question to ask people.
That actually I have a really different educational background from the traditional. I am a sucker for learning, I guess, and so my way of learning, my learning journey, my educational journey was different. I missed my high school education altogether, and I ended up skipping and going straight into college and then university.
Okay. How?
But I've never stepped into a high school, and that's something that not many people know about.
Does that mean you stopped at end of primary school?
Primary school, yeah. So in
went
Scotland,
straight into college.
Absolutely. So in Scotland, you've got primary 7, and primary 7 was the last year, and then the next time I seen an educational institute was the first year of college.
What age? Normal college age or straight?
I was about 16 when I got into college.
And what did you do between primary and college?
I was away travelling.
Were you?
Yeah, I was away travelling. Well, it had my experiences, but those years were I've just never stepped into a high school, basically.
That's so cool.
Was that's something.
Parents that took you travelling?
No, it was just me and a sibling with some uncles and aunties, and so But
and where did you start the travels?
It was actually from Glasgow to Pakistan and back to Glasgow. So
Amazing.
yeah, I was there for a
Very
few
cool.
years. But yeah, so
And you
it's
skipped all the high
and I
school.
skipped the whole entirety of my high school.
I mean, I went to college in Edinburgh, so I don't feel like you missed that much.
Well, actually, looking back, it's really interesting because, you know, I look at young people now who have gone through the high school. I've got a son, and he's gone through high school, and he's, you know, went to college to do sixth form, and then went on to doing university. He's now in the second year of uni, right? And I look at his learning journey, and I'm just like, did I actually miss much? You know, and sometimes you can ask kids the most simplest of questions, and sometimes they don't give you the right answer, and you're just like, yeah, I didn't miss much. Like, I didn't miss much at all. It's okay.
Fair enough. I think you, I know, who do I know? My old estate agent years ago had taken their kid out of primary school and gone basically backpacking around Australia with them as a couple with a kid, and they're like, nah, this is way a better education than he would have in a regular school. I'm like, I got no arguments, so yeah.
You got life lessons.
Exactly. Back to boring tech, I suppose. Not that I find tech boring. What's your favourite app or tool and why?
So I think over the years, what really got me into that whole design aspect of my career was Adobe. And I have been, I've had a relationship with Adobe. They don't know it. This is like
One-sided,
a one-sided relationship.
Maybe they do.
Maybe they do from all the invoices. Maybe they do actually. Yeah, I've had a relationship with Adobe since CS2, which was back in 2007. And so yeah, I've totally been in love with Adobe and all its apps, and actually it excites me when I see them doing something in terms of new developments. And so yeah, I think they have got so much versatility within their apps, and so much interaction within them. And as someone who is a creative, for me, it just,
Makes sense.
I really feel empowered by it. I feel like I'm able to really cross over and do so many different things within that same app or within that same structure. So yeah, Adobe's my safe space. That's an app I totally love.
Nice. I'm going to have to keep you separated from Hayley this evening. So she's, excuse me, typical, I've got a frog in my throat just as we're doing this. Hayley is SaaSy's UX UI designer, and she is a massive flag Figma.
Yeah.
So I might have to keep you separated this evening. Or just not tell her about this until afterwards.
Yeah, show her the podcast.
You'll never guess what Zreen said.
Yeah.
Start a fight.
She'll understand.
We've explained. We keep saying the same sentence about what digital transformation means for SaaSy. The reason I kind of put that description in there and stick to it is because digital transformation is pardon my French, a really wanky term that is so overused. It doesn't really mean anything to most people that don't work for like the big four, and even then it's a bit wishy-washy for what it actually means. And for us it means something very specific. We've kind of niched down into that bit of it, and that's what it means for us. What does digital transformation mean for you and your work or your world?
It means looking at what is happening around. I think when you're in I think a lot of fields are like that now, but design, especially in the last few years, has been where if you are not keeping on top of your industry in terms of learning or what's going on or what apps are out or what softwares are out, what tools are there, then you're really missing a trick, and you become kind of like stale quite fast if you're not keeping on top of things. And digital transformation for me means not just learning about the new products and tools, but actually also implementing it within the business, implementing it within the structure, making it a norm, training your staff on it so that they're aware of it as well, because I think that is what really pushes things forward. And for me, I think with especially with Biz Women in the community, we've been very fortunate. We've been able to kind of team up or be supported by Manchester City Council to deliver some workshops on, for example, things like business marketing with AI, because there was a lot of, as you know, there was an absolute burst of AI tools and apps over the last few years. But for a small business, what does that actually mean, and how can they use it? And I think AI can sometimes be a scary word for a lot of people,
100%.
and especially for smaller businesses. And I had a lot of people coming up and saying, what tools can I personally use for my business? So I was very, very actually quite thankful that I was able to do those workshops where we were able to kind of go through all these different businesses and then kind of go through what tools they can be potentially using. And by the end of it, they kind of had a better idea and were able to identify what tools they'd be using and go away and implement it. And so for me, it wasn't just about, it's not just about that knowledge and blabbering on about that knowledge. It's about making it as practical as possible so that it's easy to implement. And that for me is that digital transformation, I guess.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the, I don't know if it's the most relevant example, but I think it's more relatable than relevant. So it's in it at its real fundamental. It's a small business, for example, or even, not a small business can mean 200 people. It still fits into the SME category, right? But a small business can be switching over from something like Skype for Business that I can't even remember if it's still out there, but it's certainly not really fit for purpose anymore as the internal communication channels, to something like Slack. And it can be Slack free, and they don't have to pay someone to come in and put that in for them. But it's just that switch, because it's still a new tool and a new way of working, because it's not exactly like for like. There's channels, there's tags, there's hashtags, there's all sorts of different things that you can do in there. And that, no one would sit there and go, putting Slack in as digital transformation, but it's a relatable one that people can actually kind of go, okay, I kind of get that, I kind of understand that. It's still the same journey with the same processes and the same steps that you and the team have to follow, essentially.
Yeah, it's about making a difference, I guess, isn't it? And I think from what I've seen, it's about implementing something that's going to make a difference, make a positive difference, make processes faster or more intelligent, or provide you more information. That I'm a big believer we do as businesses. We need to look at more of our information and data that comes along, because that is what kind of empowers us to kind of go on and develop further things.
Make more decisions, right? Make better decisions. I know that
make better decisions. That is
a new strapline.
That is it. That's your tagline.
I know that AI is a buzzword that is so kind of overused at the moment. Because I work in tech, like for me, it's genuinely exciting. I get so down that rabbit hole. Don't want to bore everyone to death with it now, but if I wasn't working in tech, it would be really, really confusing and scary. Like hearing all of this big stuff coming out there, but having no clue what it means for me. Realistically, that's how I would feel if I wasn't working in it day in, day out. And there are so many tools that talk about the AI powered and stuff. It doesn't mean anything to anyone that's not taking the time and knows what to look for and what does it actually mean for me. And it's that real world application of it as well. But there's a lot of stuff that will continue to come out over the next few years as well that has small seeming impacts with real big knock-on effects for companies or even individuals. There's a tool that I came across, all of these are by accident. I came across one that copies over information from one screen or tab or tool or app on your PC, laptop, and I think phone to another one. So there's no connecting or integrating or anything like that. It sits, there's a Chrome extension actually, and I think it's got an app as well that sits and looks at all the different things that you're doing on your screen and goes, see that form that you've got there that doesn't link with something like, say, Notion? Do you want me to take all of that content and move it over for you? So there's no copying and pasting, but you also don't have to sit there and connect it either through, the app marketplace that whatever, Notion only connects with so many apps and all that sort of stuff. And this just sits on top of it. Now, I haven't yet found my own practical use for it, but I know people that have certain processes, and speaking to one of them later today, might find that a real game changer. But it doesn't sound like a lot, right? To stop me having to copy and paste something manually over, because it's not data entry. And you don't have to be doing data entry for that to be useful. It just has to be a particular process. And I found it by absolute accident. I just stumbled across it.
Those are usually the best apps, though, when you find them by accident. I was talking to a sibling of mine's the other day, and I was telling him that actually because he makes music, right? And I was telling him that I was needing a piece of music behind a video. Like, when you're up at 2 a.m. and you just want to get something done, and you're just like, I need to get this finished.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not really going to be able to sleep in peace. You've been there.
Yeah.
You have been there. Yeah. I feel like you go there often, actually. And so, I was having one of those nights, and I was like, I got to get this piece of audio, right? And I was trying to look for audio, and I couldn't find it. And I, by accidentally, stumbled upon an app, right? And I've, for the good of me, I can't remember what the name of this app is. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back into my history or something, or the file source or something. Yeah. I will do that. But I was like, I came across this AI where I was able to create an original piece of audio, and then basically be able to really edit the instruments within that audio and the tempo of it and how I wanted it to really sound. And I was able to go in and do that. Nice. And it wasn't the most like best piece of audio you're gonna hear, but it worked. It did the job, and it worked for me. And for me, I felt like it was better suited than a lot of other audio out there. And that, I feel like that is it. It's the best tools, I feel, are the ones you find by accident, but also go out there and explore software, go out there and look for them, or just have a play around, because you're going to learn along the way. This is a new territory for a lot of people and for a lot of businesses, and I think like you mentioned, if you weren't in the tech industry, and if I were not in that industry, I would be really baffled with all the information that is
even have known to look for something like that, though.
So I think we have a lot of businesses and a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are really looking for ways to kind of, with small budgets often, to try and make things work. And so to find software and to find the right software is really important for them.
And then, as you say, trial it, because a lot of the time, and this all me, if you've ever done anything like this, where you've looked for something, you've found something, and it says it does everything and make your eggs for you in the morning, and then you actually put it in, and you're like, well, where's 60% of what it said that it can do? Or,
and it's like, here's 5%, and you pay for the rest of the rest of it with X amount.
Or it's not even paid for, it doesn't do it at all. It's just a bit of a kludge and a bit of a workaround, and you're like, it's kind of disappointing, and it's a little bit, not just deflating, it can be a bit soul destroying, because you're like, oh, I was really vested in this. But exactly that. So trialing it out to see what it does for you, and that middle ground of how much do you need to maybe adapt a little bit to make it a better fit, and how much can it already do that? But that's a completely different topic. I go off on tangents as well, after I said that tangents are okay. So the next one is all about a relevant project for you that's kind of broadly within this topic, and you said you wanted to talk about Biz Women as your passion project.
So what was to go over the question again? So an example of a relevant project that has gone well.
Yeah, or maybe it hasn't gone well, but I know that Biz Women is in the first of those, so...
Absolutely. So yeah, I'll go over one that didn't go well, first of all, and this is, I guess, part of what kind of links up with my own journey. So I really, at the start of my kind of entrepreneurial journey, I really wanted to set up a website that was promoting local events. I have always had the community bug in me, I guess. And so for me, it meant I was able to promote local community events that are happening, as well as little gigs that are happening at venues. And so I had got this website made from someone, and it wasn't someone local, it was someone abroad. And
offshoring.
Offshoring.
That dirty word.
I did. This was my first experience of getting a website created. And and I had a very small budget, and I thought, let's just try this. Let's get
the
this
worst
over
that
the
can
line.
happen?
Yeah, exactly. What's the worst that's going to happen? Let's get this over the line. We can do this, right? And I've always had that attitude of we can do this, as you can see today. So basically, I went for it and got this website created, and actually it looked good and it was working well. And then I struggled with the whole aspect of trying to get back control from this person. This person did not want to allow me to upload the content myself. They wanted me to send the content to them for them to upload it, and I thought, this is really time consuming, and this costing me a lot of money as well, actually. And for me, it was like a project that didn't go well, because I realized that I was not going to be able to work like this. This was not going to be a dynamic that was going to work well in the long term. I had to close down that project. That project went to the gutter. I had to forget about it.
I've been there and I feel the pain in my bones. So,
I had to forget about it completely, because I thought, you know what, if I can't have the control that I need to enable me to grow the business, then actually it's better that I just completely kill this right now, rather than investing more in it. And that was a decision I had to make. Shall I invest more time in it? Shall I invest more money into this? And at that point I had to be like, no, you are better off not doing that. And actually that was the start of my journey into learning how to create web apps and websites and design them and develop them myself. I just had to be like
that twist then, because it's a real catalyst, isn't it?
It was a real trigger point, actually. It was a real trigger point. I thought, I have to be able to do this myself. This is not right. And I just didn't like the whole thought of not having that control of growing and developing the business in a way which I didn't feel like was fair. And so it was that whole aspect of that feeling of someone taking advantage of you that I just did not like. So I thought,
it can be a real steep learning curve. I can't speak English today, I can't speak at all. It can be a real steep learning curve, because it's not just getting into tech or getting into a project that needs tech, or a business that needs tech or something. And even just a regular website is a tech project essentially. But it's, even I wouldn't necessarily think to add that question, because I'd probably put it in a contract now, because I've seen it happen over and over again, I suppose. But why would I have known that at the start of my own journey? I was stung in a similar sort of way over a completely different sort of topic and stuff, but like, it's a learning thing, right? So you just go.
Yeah, it was a huge learning curve. It was an expensive one, but it was a huge one. But for me, it was definitely a learning curve as to having more self-belief in myself, to be like, no, you can do this. And so I think
funny, I resonate with that actually as well, because I kept, even though when I had a real failed project to start with 3.5 years ago now, and I thought, this isn't my first rodeo in software. I know roughly what I'm doing, enough to manage it on my own and really keep budgets tight. And I actually kept second guessing myself, just assuming that the people I was working with knew better than me. And it took me weeks longer than it should have done to go, no, this is a confidence thing, not a knowledge thing, actually. And that was one of my ones as well. Again, an expensive one, but I resonate with that.
And I feel like once you're in that position, you learn along the way. And I think for me, I did. I had to learn along the way, and I kind of took that learning path kind of in a playful manner, because for me, I felt like I was empowering myself along this learning journey, and so that was a really, really interesting way. But that wouldn't have happened if that incident didn't happen, and if that failure didn't happen. I do see it as a failed project, but at the same time I see it as like, that was a trigger that was perhaps led me on to some amazing stuff. So yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Great project.
That was an epic failure. And I
but
guess
it led you to the successful one, right?
It absolutely led me to many successful ones, not just for myself, but actually for other people too. And I think that's what I realized early on was I had the design skills, and back then, you probably know this, a lot of people that were PHP developers, they didn't have design skills, you know, so they had the PHP skills, but not necessarily the design skills to make something look good.
Yeah.
And so I really felt like I was a superstar at the time. I just thought, I'm at an advantage. I've got my design skills and I can make websites. I'm a winner.
Before we go on to the Biz Women one, I have to ask: Are you pre or post Dreamweaver?
I am. I started with Dreamweaver actually.
I remember
Absolutely.
Dreamweaver.
I started.
Thankfully, I was right at the end of that particular when I kind of got into it, but I used Dreamweaver.
I loved Dreamweaver. I started with Dreamweaver. Again, it was Adobe, right? And I felt like this is where I felt Adobe. You see, even you got sucked into Adobe. You don't even know. There you go. But again, you know, it was part of your journey. And so, yeah, absolutely. I felt like Adobe was a power machine at the time. I was like, this is brilliant. They've got Dreamweaver. And so I guess that was a learning point. That was the start of my learning, was Dreamweaver, absolutely. And I think, you know, with Biz Women being the good project, I guess a project that went well for me, that would be a really good example, because it started as a passion project. It started off with me feeling like, you know, when you're in front of the computer, you're working away, and you're just like, I need to socialise here. I need to
I've just driven 200 miles for Fiesta.
To socialise, exactly. I need to socialise it. I need to get out. You've taken it far, but, you know, I'm like, I need to get out and actually meet other people. This is like not healthy. And so I felt like my life at that point was pretty like, even though it was before COVID, this was like, I felt like I was already in kind of like lockdown. I felt like I trained for lockdown. So when lockdown came about, I was like, what's everybody making such a fuss about?
We're
right?
all hands at this.
You know? But by that point, I was a pro, basically. I was okay. It was terrible.
I was in isolation for like a year before it kicked in.
So I totally relate to you with that. And so, you know, I think my socializing was all related to work. And what I realized is that I loved what I did, and I loved making friends and I loved connecting, but then my conversations with them were around business and work. And you know, not everybody, you do realize, and I think as entrepreneurs, we sometimes don't realize not everybody's interested in business. Not everybody wants to hear your shit, basically. Not everybody wants to.
This is a novelty for me, because I make everyone listen to my shit.
Not everybody wants to hear what you're doing for business and work. Not all of your friends want to know that. No, they're not all interested in amazing stuff you're doing, basically. Sometimes they just want your company, you know, and to know your normal everyday friend stuff, you know. But so I realized that actually I was enjoying talking about work though and business.
Yeah.
And so my friends and people that I was socializing with had to be of similar mindset, basically. I.e. That's basically why we're sitting together today. But, you know, so this was really an interesting point where I thought, I need to get out, because there's other women in business that are needing to connect. And actually, one of the things I realized was communities were charging quite a bit of money. So even and they do amazing stuff. They do amazing work, but you've got your Chamber of Commerce, which you're looking at over £600 a year per membership, personal membership. And so, you know, for me, it was a point in time where I thought, accessibility is so important, and we are lacking that accessibility for businesses, especially in startup phase, when they don't have thousands of pounds to fork out for membership. They're at the start of a seedling of their business idea, and a lot of them need that support and need that guidance at that starting point of the journey, but actually they don't have it because these communities are costing a lot of money, or they're feeling like they're being pressurized to bring in more people into the community.
And it's also, sorry to interrupt, but it's also like, it's a big investment before you know if it's a good fit for you as well.
Yes.
Because they're not a good fit for absolutely everyone everywhere just because they're in business. But sorry to break the
so basically I set up Biz Women, and I set it up at a local coffee shop to begin with. called the Funky Monkey in Stockport. And it was a little quirky place. I know, it was such a quirky, it is still a quirky place, and amazing people. And the owner was a female called Heather, and she was amazing. And we basically just sat and I asked her, I was like, can we do some Biz Women events here? And she was like, absolutely, after coffee shop hours, let's do it. You know, and it grew. But then COVID hit us. And through COVID, I found it quite tough because I wanted that in-person experience. Yeah. But then we were pushed to go online. But what I realised is there were more women online that were actually needing that interaction, that weren't necessarily going to come to where I was, but were able to connect online with everybody. And so the community grew. And after COVID, really, we basically, well, actually during COVID, we started developing the website, bizwomen.org. So it became a digital publication. It became a resource hub. And now we've got to the point where we've carried on developing it, because in my head, I'm thinking, how else can I give more value back? Yeah. And I think a lot of people were ask, you know, so what is the membership like? And I'm like, we have, because I strongly believe in accessibility, I believe that community can be done in a different way. I believe networking can be done in a different way. We've got our free subscription, and then we've got our pro membership, which is £1 for the whole year, because we needed a paywall. I know you sent an email, I read your email, you're like, I have paid my full English pound, legal tender, I believe. And so... and
I don't know if I could afford it again next year. I'm going to have to save up now. It's a very expensive
start saving up from now. You can start saving up, but basically, yeah. So, but again, I believe that it can be done differently, and so for us, it's about making a social impact as well. Yeah. That's going to make a difference to those women in business who sometimes may find themselves in a position where they are trying to make their business work, where they might be struggling financially, but that they haven't got the money to join memberships, community memberships, whether it's here or anywhere else. And so for us, it was a real matter of how can we like really push this forward and help those women in business. And actually, as a result, we've become quite an inclusive community where it doesn't matter whether you are in startup phase. You can absolutely be in startup phase of a business, or you can be running like an amazing, established business. We will all still be in the same room together, sharing our experiences and journeys, and that is like the most beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, I've been looking for a community that feels like a good fit for me. I've done a lot of the local networking ones, and because of my target audience and because of my own business setup, it's not always a good fit for me, not for any negative reasons. It's just not a good use of my time or a particularly good use of my energy. And I am very curious, how big is the community now?
So we have over 4,500 members across the UK. And actually, we are doing our first international event in Lisbon as well, a fringe event from the Web Summit, because we're going to be there. And so we're looking forward to the Lisbon event, where there's a lot of tech companies that are going to be there. And one of the things I need to mention the Web Summit, because they have really taught me something throughout the years as well. So with the Web Summit, I've been going since 2019, and really one of the things I noticed is they had an emphasis on providing women in business, women in tech tickets, which had an 85% discount.
Nice.
And the reason they did that wasn't because women in business weren't spending money to come along and to be part of it. You still had women attending and paying the full price, which is quite expensive. But what they recognized was, if they wanted more women in business to turn up, or women in tech to turn up, that they needed to do something to make them feel welcome and encourage basically them to come along. And so they provided that discount, but actually you had like a whole entrance for women in tech. You had a separate entrance for women in tech, and they really made a big deal about it.
Do they still
And
run
as
that?
a result, absolutely, and as a result, it's for only a small period of time. I think every year they do this for a small period of time, basically, and those tickets just vanish. But it's a lot of tickets that they do give out. And so one of the things that I have seen is that, for example, last year they had over 70,000 people attend the Web Summit in Lisbon. That's 70,000 people descending to see the summit, and half of them were women.
Wow, that's an impressive stat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's not happened by coincidence.
Yeah.
That's not happened by accident. That has been happening because of their consistent kind of working towards that.
Nice.
And they've every year they've kind of worked towards that. And what they realized was accessibility was the most important thing out of this. Accessibility is what I've seen that has worked for them the most, basically.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to pick a bone here because we're running out of time and I don't want to go down that tangent, but I went to London Tech Week for the first time this year and there was not 50% women in that room. Just saying.
Well, let me just tell you, I seen a delegation, and I won't mention where from, but it was an international delegation from a certain chamber that had come from a different country, and there was no female delegates, not even one female delegate that came along. And I literally walked in the room, and my first question was, where are the female? Are they female delegates? And the answer was yes, right? And it was not. There was 2 or 3 people there, and they were there supporting their husbands.
Oh, great.
And so it was just like, okay, you know, but this is a struggle for a lot of organizations. But you know, when you see it happen successfully, you recognize why it's happening. You understand that accessibility means so much to businesses across, but for women in business, it's definitely work to encourage them, to bring them together.
Nice.
And so that's what kind of I've kind of been working on.
I like that. Because I'm too stingy to pay for Zoom because I only ever use them for these. We're about to run out of time.
Okay.
But what I'll do is I'm going to include your pro tip in writing afterwards.
Okay,
'cause I
brilliant.
Like it.
Okay.
And the last question then, other than that pro tip, was what advice would you give someone about to go on their own digital roller coaster?
Embrace it and be persistently stubborn about it. You have to be stubborn about it. Do not give up, as much as tempting as it may be to give up. And there's going to be times when you feel like I can just give up. Basically, you do feel like that. You have moments and days, but really believe in yourself. Even when nobody else believes you or believes in you, you have to still carry on believing in yourself to achieve the stuff that you want to achieve, as long as you know you're capable of it, because nobody else knows your capability more than you. And as long as you know your capability and you know that you can do it, that's all that matters. It does not matter what anybody else thinks. And just carry on with that journey, because it will pay off in the end. It's that persistency and just be consistent and won't let anybody get you down.
Thank you so much for sitting and talking to us for the different interview than we thought we were going to do today.
Yeah.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you. Let me just stop
Well, thanks for having me.